In a world grappling with moral and ethical dilemmas, the death penalty is one of the more contentious issues. But from a Christian perspective, it's pretty straightforward to me. As a Christian, I believe that capital punishment can never be justified, and this is backed by what the Bible and Jesus teaches us. So let's start with Jesus' teachings and mercy. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus presents a radical approach to dealing with injustice in general. In his words, Jesus says, "If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also." Now this is a departure from the eye for an eye mentality, advocating for non-violence and forgiveness. This doesn't mean that someone should not receive just punishment for their wrongdoings, of course, but for me, this verse is a powerful lesson in mercy. Another well-known Bible story is the story of the woman caught in adultery. In this narrative, Jesus confronts a situation where a woman caught in adultery, a crime punishable by death according to law at the time, faces execution. His response was to say, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." This is another example of Jesus' powerful stance on mercy over legalistic judgment when it comes to the death penalty. I also want to talk about the call to forgiveness and mercy. So anyone familiar with the Bible will know that there is a significant emphasis on the theme of forgiveness, both as an attribute of God and as a moral imperative for believers. The parable of the unmerciful servant is a good example of Jesus emphasizing the importance of forgiveness. In this story, the servant was forgiven a great debt, but was unwilling to forgive a smaller debt, and even had his debtor thrown into prison. This parable teaches that forgiveness should be limitless and practiced genuinely from the heart. It highlights the perils of hypocrisy and the expectation of grace in human relationships, reflecting the boundless forgiveness offered by God. The Beatitudes, and in particular, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy," also perfectly captures Jesus' teachings on compassion. This principle challenges the notion of the death penalty, suggesting mercy as a higher virtue. I also want to point out that vengeance and judgment, in particular, an act as final as the death penalty, belongs to God. Romans 12:19 reads, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." This passage from Romans speaks to the Christian belief that ultimate judgment is reserved for God, not humans. For me, this perspective also questions the moral authority of humans to administer the death penalty. We should also look at the Old Testament context here. I want to add that some Christians are pro-death penalty, and they usually cite Genesis 9:6 to justify their stance, which reads, "Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed." However, it's crucial to interpret this within the larger biblical narrative, which evolves towards a New Testament ethos of forgiveness and redemption. The Bible is full of stories of redemption, underscoring the belief in the potential for change and salvation. This theme stands in stark contrast to the irreversible nature of the death penalty, highlighting the transformative power of mercy and forgiveness. And finally, I want to end on another example known as Paul's choice. So when faced with the possibility of death, the Apostle Paul chose to appeal to Caesar, showing a preference for life and due process over immediate execution. This decision can also be interpreted as a call for Christians to seek alternatives to capital punishment.